Welcome to InGeneral, the Jurassic Outpost podcast. My name's Jack. I'm joined with Chris and Asees.
How's it going today?
I am so glad to be back, everyone. It's been way too long. What are we doing, guys? It's been too
It's
long.
been a long time. This is part 2 of 2. This is our second part, which we recorded
I think 6 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, we really
have to
pushed
let it
it.
simmer.
The good news is we are still in 2022 recording this. And
Like we promised. We promised it would come out.
dangerously close. It's December 30th. We are dangerously close to the end of the year.
That's
but-
when we get this out before the first. That's
Yeah, but we're not at the end of the year yet while recording, and that's all that matters.
That's it. This is Discussing Dumb part 2 of 2. If you missed the first part, it should be right there. It should be available to you. It should be very easy for you to figure out.
You should have seen it by 5 times by now, each of you.
I mean, by now, but we're finally on part 2. I'm joined with the guys, and we have a few things to discuss before we jump into Dominion and the extended cut. I want to talk about 65.
Mm-hmm.
65.
100 minus 35.
The trailer for this movie came out, finally.
Yes.
And there were rumors back in when it first got announced, supposedly, that this was a dinosaur movie. And then the studio, I think Sony, removed that synopsis, so there was a bit of unsure, and then there are apparently some test screenings that may have changed the movie a little bit, but it is a dinosaur movie, or at least it's a dinosaur. No, it's a dinosaur with movies in it. So
A dinosaur with movies in it. No feathers though.
Yeah.
No feathers either way. No feathers either way.
What's funny is I'm so curious what their original marketing was going to be for this movie, because everyone that worked on it have been like tweeting like, "Oh, damn! When we were working on it, we were told like it was supposed to be a secret that it was a dinosaur movie, and you weren't supposed to find out till you're in theaters and everything like that." And like in the movie, in the trailer, they're like, crash landed on Earth 65 million years ago, and they're like, that was supposed to be the final act twist. Not that there are dinosaurs in the movie, but like that was like supposed to be like the twist at the end of the movie, that it was Earth in the past. So they're like, they really have obviously changed this film quite a bit since its initial filming and development. So,
Or they just spoiled the movie entirely. They can do that sometimes.
Yeah,
But you know what? I'm gonna watch it regardless. If you put Adam Driver, aka Ben Solo, on screen, dude, I'm there. I am there. He's good stuff. He's a good actor.
as well. He looks great.
And who made this? Is this an A24 film?
no, it's just Sony.
That was
Sony,
another
okay,
rumor
Sony.
that came out. I remember. I think.
Yeah, I heard
discussing
something
Chris
about that.
when this happened. We were working, and I was like, "Where is the A24 thing coming
I
from?"
heard that
It's
too.
not an
right?
A24 movie, and I kept seeing that
I
everywhere.
wish it was
People
though.
were
In
just
hindsight.
tweeting
Oh
it.
boy.
But yeah, no, I didn't hear anything about this movie. It was literally like the day before the trailer came out. Ryan had messaged me.
Mhm.
He was like, dude, what's going on with 65? And I was just like, what's 65?
I know Chris is like the go-to guy for dinosaurs.
And
Like everything
he's
dinosaur
like,
related, Chris knows. It's like
the
go to
movie
Chris
with
for
Adam
anything.
Driver, and it's gonna supposedly have dinosaurs. And I'm like, I've literally heard nothing about this.
And my dinosaur sources didn't say anything about it.
I found out about it like a day before the trailer came out, and I was just like, oh, well, I guess we'll find out if this is a dinosaur movie tomorrow. And as we've been saying, it is a dinosaur movie. And I think it's pretty cool because this is the first time that there has been a Hollywood blockbuster dinosaur movie outside of the Jurassic franchise. I think probably since that Will Ferrell Land of the Lost movie, if we're counting live action. I might be wrong, but I don't think that there's been any theatrical.
Maybe some Journey to the Center of the Earth. They were like featured maybe for like a scene or two, but like nothing prominent like this.
Yeah, I really.
It's been a commentary of movies in the past 10 years, hasn't it? That there aren't any other dinosaur franchises.
I'd argue
aside from Jurassic, and now finally we may have one.
Mhm.
Although, aren't there reports saying that there were supposed to be herbivores in the movie and something happened?
Yeah,
or other species at least, because so far we only know of T-Rex, Oviraptor. Come on, help me out here, Chris.
Some sort of raptor thing, yeah.
So, yeah, some sort of generic raptor. There's some sort of T-Rex thing. There's some sort of I do think there is some sort of oviraptor thing. But yeah, I think that there were rumors, I guess, that there was going to be like a companion dinosaur that they cut entirely from the movie, and it was supposed to like a 3-legged ankylosaurus or something like that. And it was like young, so it sort of like stuck close to them, and
One-legged bumpy.
like a triceratops type of moment. And apparently they cut out all of like the cuter, more like humble moments with dinosaurs, and then just added a lot more horror moments with dinosaurs, which does make me
I'm not a
worry.
big fan of that.
which does make me worry because it just sounds like it's going down generic.
Monster dinosaurs.
I mean, looking at their designs, they're really bad. I will say
Very generic, very Turok esque.
I'm not talking accuracy. I really don't care about accuracy with a movie like this. Like whatever. I'm just talking. They just look like your generic video game, arcade game dinosaurs.
They didn't put any creativity almost behind it. Like you could take that smaller raptor, and that could have been from anything from the early 2000s and the late 90s. It looks everything like it.
2004 video game raptor.
Exactly.
Not CG quality. The CG quality is obviously better. I'm just talking about the design. It's got those. It's like its wrists are more humanoid than like the Jurassic Park ones. You know what I mean? Where it's like the things that are riffing off of Jurassic Park, but not doing the research to even make it feel like a real animal, like Jurassic Park did. Jurassic Park took a lot of liberties, but they felt like they were real physiological creatures. Where this has more of that video game thing. So that's a bit of a bummer. And again, I'm not talking accuracy. Accuracy would be really cool, but like I would be totally fine for like a Peter Jackson's King Kong type thing again, where they do their own thing and it just feels really cool and creative and imaginative and real. But Adam Driver has he chooses good movies.
He chooses good projects.
So this could be a good movie with some mediocre dinosaur designs, and I don't know. I'll still take that. I mean, from the writers of A Quiet Place, we've long said, Quiet Place dinosaurs, let's do it. Like, so, I'm excited.
You hope the suspense is there. You hope the tension is there. And you hope, more than anything, the story is there. It's got to be, it's got to feel like a solid story and script before it can actually be this great dinosaur movie. That's what I worry about, is that it is going to end up with all the amount that we're hearing that it's been sliced and diced after test screenings, that it might end up feeling a little
sci-fi original running gun,
and a little messy as well.
Pretty much get from point A to point B, save the kid kind of thing. And I don't see where the tension's coming from.
Yeah, it sounded cooler. I mean, they may still have some sort of like thing like this in the third act, but I love the idea that you find out as like almost towards the end of the movie that there's the time travel aspect, right? I love that. It's not another planet. It's not. They're on Earth, man. Like that's.
So the real question is, cool. Do you think they accidentally caused the extinction of the dinosaurs?
Oh, is that the plot twist now?
No, I don't know. I don't know that. I'm just like asking you because
that's a good idea. That's a good question.
Years ago, humanity lands on the planet. I'm like, is this movie going to end with like them doing something that accidentally causes a mass extinction event? I don't know.
Hate that. I kind of like that, actually.
At the same time, I don't know if they want sequel potential on this movie, and if that's the case, then that's definitely not happening.
65 million in one?
65 too.
Or will there be aliens? Will they just like, pull something completely out of nowhere, and then it's going to be like humans surviving on a planet with dinosaurs versus aliens?
I watch that. I watch the hell out of that.
Silly. I don't know.
The whole thing seems it's exciting. Either way, it's exciting. There's new dinosaur property coming. Do we have a release date? What's the release date for that?
February, isn't it?
February or March?
Very
soon. Not usually the best place for movies, although I think that's kind of outdated now.
It's kind of back in the past.
Dumping ground in early of the year. It's not really a bad thing anymore. Especially
January is like usually the real dumping ground. February is where you can get a little bit of play. And also, yeah, like you said, that game's entirely changed.
Yeah, so it's going to be exciting to see what this movie does. I'm excited to see it. But if there's anybody out there listening, who has information on 65, Jurassic Outpost will now be reporting on this movie. So we want to bring you all the leaks and. But for real, like I'm curious. I want to know more about it now. Yeah,
I would love to know if the story is true about the three-legged ankylosaurus and whatnot. What happened there? How much the movie's changed? I'm a lot more curious, not about like what's going to be in the final movie, but more like how did it change? Why did it change?
We'll be talking about something like that soon.
Yeah,
we'll be talking about something like that with a little franchise we like to call J-Dubs.
But I'm curious about the test screenings and if that's true, and like kind of how it went down. People do usually. I mean, they sign NDAs, but people usually do leak stuff from screenings online. It happened with the latest Texas Chainsaw, like the whole plot.
It happens with anytime there's a movie screening, there are.
You always get one person.
It happened with Jurassic World Dominion, like a few months before the movie came out.
And we will discuss that. We will go into that because that's very interesting. But one more point about 65 and that whole test screening thing. I just reminded myself the Texas Chainsaw movie that came out. The latest one that came out, right? I'm a sucker for Texas Chainsaw, and to this day, I've been waiting for a good sequel. Every sequel I give a chance to. Some of them are all right. Most of them are terrible. But this one came out, and then a few months before it came out, there was a test screening leak, and people saying the movie's this, this, and this, and it's awful, and everybody left, and like it was a bad review. Anyway, the movie didn't really change. Was released, and I enjoyed it, and I think it helped.
Really?
Being told this
Wow.
movie is this, this, and this, and you're not going to enjoy it. And I was like, well, I'll be the judge of that. And I did have a really good time. The points they were saying were true, and the movie isn't very logical, but I had a good time, man. I think like it's very important to have your own context for stuff, you know? And I think with 65, people saying, well, the studio are changing it. They wanted to change stuff, maybe to take some dinosaurs out. Like that just seems like similar response to how Universal may have acted through the Jurassic franchise over time, which again we'll go into. But it's an interesting point. But there is a few more things to discuss before we do that. Ark, the animated series.
Yeah. Asees, you've played Ark, the game, survival game, right?
I have played Ark a little bit on the Xbox, yes, back in early access days. I have not
Yeah.
played since the proper builds have come out, but I like the idea, and I'm pretty excited for the anime that's coming out. I like the idea of some more dinosaur content that's just varied. You give me more varied dinosaur content, I'm all about it, especially based off video games.
Can you give a quick overview what it actually is and what Ark is?
Oh boy, Ark is almost like a Minecraft-esque building survival game that just kind of has open world aspects and there's the dinosaurs kind of running around. I'm not the biggest. Yeah, Chris probably can explain it better than I can. It's been a number of years, but essentially what I remember is like Minecraft with dinosaurs and open world.
Like no story. It's a sandbox
Yeah.
game. You dropped in, you got nothing. Go
also
find
like
a stick.
Gary's mod type thing, you know.
Go find a stick. Go find a rock. Start bashing together. Eventually, you can maybe make
humble
a fire,
beginnings. You make your way up. Yeah,
and then eventually
technology and stuff like that.
Eventually, you can like build technology and you can do all this crazy stuff. But in this open world, they're just dinosaurs. And then I think there's like a multiplayer component where it's not like competitive multiplayer in the traditional sense. It's just other people are surviving in this world with you, and you can like build towns and like armor on dinosaurs and ride them, and it gets really crazy. The problem is you really got to be committed to it because like for one thing, when it first came out, it was clunky as anything on the Xbox. It's a lot better now, but like again, it just drops you in. No, doesn't tell you how to play the game. You really have to be committed. You really have to be willing to like put mad amount of time into your character.
Which a lot of people are. It's hugely successful, this game.
I usually run around, end up hiding on a rock from a dinosaur and bash it with a stick for like an hour and going, I can't play this game. This is miserable. I've seen people that get far enough in the game where it becomes a very playable game, mainly on PC because it still doesn't run great on consoles. But the concept is there. It's just very clunky, refined. It's very much one of those like now a sequel is coming out and looks like they're really addressing a lot of that. But anyhow, so I think you're like a person from the future thrust into a world with dinosaurs, and there's
65.
And then there's like mysterious artifacts or something like that. From the 65 animated series trailer, it looks like the main character
Ark animated,
not 65. The Ark animated looks like the character she dies in like our world's Earth and wakes up in this dinosaur place. I don't know. There is a crazy cast list on that.
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking at the trailer. It opens by saying exec producers Gerard Butler, Russell Crowe, and Vin Diesel. What the
Yo, what the hell is going on? They're throwing some cash at this.
Yeah, you know, it's got so many people in it: Gerald Butler, David Tennant, Jeffrey Wright, Elliot Page, Carl Urban.
It's a great cast.
It's got a lot of people on it. The art style looks pretty fun. And it's, like I said, it's preceding a sequel game that's coming out that also is apparently going to have everything you like about the original game in terms of like living in an open world, building your world, choosing your options. But it's also going to be narratively based, I believe. Like I think Vin Diesel's also like acting a character in the sequel, so it'll be a little bit more of a narrative driven. So if you want something that gives you structure and story,
Vin Diesel and dinosaurs.
So I don't know. It's really strange, but Ark, that is a huge dinosaur game with the time. I mean, hell, Mattel has copied some Ark designs for their toys in the past. The Tapahara was straight up out of Ark. the design and the colors. Like they literally.
So it's an influential game. You were saying
it's one of the major sources of dinosaur media outside of the Jurassic franchise. It's one of the most
one of the biggest IPs. You would say less than Jurassic kind of are holding it down.
Because you can imagine
Dino Crisis. Where are you at? We need you.
When you're younger, and you have more time to just dump tons of hours to figure out a game. I imagine that type of game would be very appealing. But for me, I'm just like,
you don't have the attention span. We don't have
it. It can be tough. Yeah, it sounds more like one of those, like a simulation game. You know,
yeah,
you start from nothing, you slowly build your way up, like a city builder. I fucking love.
It's like a survival sim, first-person survival sim.
Sorry, so I'm looking through this trailer. Firstly, animation is. I don't even know what kind of animation you define that as, but it's gorgeous, and it has a very like 90s feel to it in a weird way. I don't know if that's just me or.
I agree.
It looks like it's obviously not, but it looks very like hand drawn, very. Got a real
what I like.
style to it.
It seems like it's using hand-drawn backgrounds, something that a lot of things don't use anymore, which I like. I like that. I like, the original sort of animation that used a lot of hand-drawn backgrounds and then computer-assisted characters, but it's still going for a very 2D animated, traditional animated style. So, I don't know. It might be good. I don't know. God knows they're throwing a lot of money at it, so they kind of need it to be good. But what's crazy is when even in the trailer, they're like, or even with the press release, they're like launching on a platform yet to be announced. I don't think that means the platform hasn't been announced. I think it just means that they haven't said who's picking this up yet. Because maybe
they haven't landed an agreement.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't be surprised if whatever studio is making this formed their own video platform that we.
I hope not. Just
I'm doing the line, buddy.
Just throw it on Netflix because that's what everyone has. I think that would be good. Of course, Netflix is prone to cancel things, so maybe throw it on Amazon.
Yeah, but nobody has Prime.
Prime's like the biggest one out there,
It's also the worst. It's the worst one. It's the only app that you go through. Actually, I don't know if it is. Some of them aren't accessible to me, but it's the only app you go through where it's like, great, I want to watch this. You click on it and you're like, oh, I got to pay.
Oh, and then it's like,
that's a very annoying feature.
Get the hell out of here, man. The only benefit of Prime is that fast postage. And only if you live somewhere that can actually do that. I used to live on an island. There's no such thing. We did 2-day minimum.
No, what I will say about Prime, though, is their originals have been quite good. I really have enjoyed the Amazon shows. Sucks to say that because Amazon is this giant monster of a company, but I have.
But if you produce good content, make good content, and we'll watch it. AKA, where's the Jurassic content?
Bad stuff.
I want more Jurassic content. TV.
Well, yeah, their TV's been good. I think The Boys is a great show. The Lord of the Rings show really took me by surprise.
I thought a lot of people didn't like that one.
Yeah, probably for most of the wrong reasons. Some people probably didn't like it for enough reasons, but I thought it was fantastic.
I saw a lot of legit criticism of it, like nothing to do with what that topic is.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that here.
Not going to bring that up. But I heard a lot of like legit criticism. I remember when I first asked you about it, Chris, you were like, it's taken a while to hook, but when you got hooked, you were like, no, I fucking love it.
Hour 10, I'm into it finally.
Yeah, but that's the first episode. Once you're through the first episode,
Jeez.
It's really interesting because the first 2 episodes are directed by J.A. Bayona, and it's a really It's a really good testament to his blockbuster directing skills outside of Jurassic. And I'll tell you what, this was not tonally inconsistent. It was beautifully shot, and I was like, well, damn. He's not making a bunch of weird choices here. The story isn't incomprehensible. The pacing isn't.
What went wrong? We'll talk about that. I
don't know. I mean, I would say just for if you ever want a conversation point, watch the first 2 episodes of the Lord of the Rings show.
Literally any other J.A. Bayona movie.
Take it from a J.A. Bayona standpoint.
J.A. Bayona, that's the thing. When it announced him on Fallen Kingdom, and I'm sure we've discussed.
We were all pumped.
I was like, I like J.A. Bayona's movies. The Orphanage is one of my favorite horrors.
The Impossible, amazing movie, amazing.
And then A Monster Calls came out just before Fallen Kingdom.
He kept crushing it 3 in a row, man.
A little bit long. Like
Chris
his
didn't like it.
Chris always been a little slow and a little drawn out. But I love cinema. I've always been there for just sitting and enjoying. And then Fallen Kingdom was just so tonally inconsistent. But the more it kind of comes back to being the screenplay that kind of.
I still think Bayona made a lot of wrong choices. He decided to do some very inconsistent things with that screenplay.
even inconsistent with his own work, though.
Yeah, I know, it's very strange. It's almost like he had a vision of what he imagined the studio wanted him to do, so he really went so this is the way I need to make it for this type of project, and it just ends up. We've talked about Fallen Kingdom a lot. Anyways, I think that circling back to Lord of the Rings, it's a very similar heavy studio situation, a pre-existing IP. Seeing how Bayona handled that, I found it very fascinating, and he's very talented. I would even love to have him back on Jurassic, maybe, but it would have to be the right project that's consistent with his style.
Maybe an episode or two of
an episode. If they ever did a show, I would love to get Bayona, Colin. I would love to get everyone that's worked on things.
Bryce Dallas Howard, easily.
Everyone on one episode. You can get I almost said J.J. Abrams, Joe Johnson.
Hey, why not? Wait, why not though? Why not?
No, I mean, you can get Joe Johnson for an episode.
I'm going to J.J. Abrams. Jurassic, but sorry, we were actually talking about Ark, and I finally got to the end of the trailer. It's a 4.5-minute trailer. That's
very long.
They're obviously trying to shop that round, I think, trying to reveal as much as they can, because there's some beautiful stuff in that trailer. The cast list is insane. Like, there's some really talented people here, and a lot of names that will hopefully, gain a lot of traction after the show. But yeah, I'm kind of excited. It's different. I've never played Ark. I've heard a lot about it, but this is really interesting. It's funny how after the 3 Jurassic World movies, you got 65 that obviously began development during that era. You've got the Ark animated series, which hasn't happened because of Jurassic World, but the popularity has probably paid a huge factor.
Sure, it's helped. Yeah.
Studio making a bunch of money from dinosaurs. Other studios are like, right, let's throw some money at dinosaurs.
So the only one I'm upset about is Capcom. Like, Capcom, where you been with the Dino Crisis? You already got that RE engine. I don't understand what your holdup here is, fella.
That's the lack of AAA budget, high quality.
They even had one in development and they nixed it. I mean, like, they had it going. Why would they cancel it?
Was
it?
That
you have the engines, everything.
There was some fans making a Dino Crisis remake, but some of them that were involved, I'm probably wrong with this, but I swear were involved in the original Dino Crisis. Obviously didn't work at Capcom anymore, but were like, there should be a remaster. So they were involved as fans. And then the studio were like, no. they cancelled it. They DMCA'd them. And everyone was like, well, this is great because it probably means they're working on their own. And then silence.
Maybe.
That's not Capcom.
Sure.
There's something
I will say. I will give having no more Jurassic content ever for just one single Dino Crisis game. That's good. That has to be the caveat. It has to be good. I don't want no crappy one for the sake of Jurassic. That's not what I'm doing.
Yeah, that seems like not
a bad trade.
That seems like the best trade off there. I would love for Dino Crisis to come back, especially with the direction of the new Resident Evil games. How they've
oh my god, perfect, right? Mm-hmm.
They're really well made, really cool story. I think that they could do a good job with Resident Evil if they took that serious approach with not Resident Evil, Dino Crisis. If they took that serious approach, but I would just love to see more dinosaur games in like the AAA space that aren't park builders.
Speaking of games,
that aren't survival sims, because it's all park builder or
survival sim. That's what I'm talking about.
It's like a clunky ass survival sim that's not in narrative.
No. I want to give a shout out to Coatsink because I'm a big fan of Jurassic World Aftermath, and they ported it over to the Switch recently, and I'm gonna have to give him shout out because I've been playing it a lot, and I think that's my preferred way to consume that content. It's fantastic.
It's a good VR game. It was not. I thought it
was okay, but I agree with Chris in general. Yes, I think if you want to play it, get on the Switch. Absolutely. It runs well. It almost seems like it was natively made for the Switch, and I think the port's actually pretty well done too. So I highly recommend it. Coatsink, thank you. I really enjoy it.
It's something I wish I had a Switch for because I really did want to play that game.
It's a shame they didn't port it to more like just PC.
Who knows? They may. Consoles. They may. Who knows?
It's weird that it's only on the Switch. It's not a AAA game. It's very simplified and streamlined, but it's got the idea.
Shell shading, cartoon aesthetic too. It's not even. It's very bluey, not a lot of colors, but it's good.
Alien Isolation light.
Yeah, pretty much.
Alien Isolation were like a mobile game, but then got good controls.
Oh, and Lauren Bailey does the voiceover. Very good. Shout out to her.
When you both, I think, because you both played it at a very similar time, or at least I remember Chris played it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you saying the art style is just not appropriate for VR because of the fact that VR is supposed to kind of throw you into a real world.
So it immerse you in.
yeah, that made a lot of sense. And then when you see Asees saying about it on the Switch, I'm like, well, that does make sense. The art style is kind of
Mhm.
applicable for the Nintendo Switch, right?
Simplified,
Yeah,
handheld, whatever you want to,
it
or
was
console.
cartoony, but like it's got a real cool style to it. I do like the
Mhm.
style.
It's a good style, yeah, for sure.
A quick mention before we wrap up and talk Dominion. If you didn't catch the very last episode of Beyond the Gates, that's been uploaded, I think, last week, and that is a summary of the Generation Jurassic event that happened earlier in the year. So you can check that out on the Jurassic World channel.
Happened probably around the same time we recorded our last podcast, so it was
Yeah,
Oopsies.
yeah, that's true.
timing for
The
both.
boys have been busy.
Woo! And talking of there's a little documentary that came out called Jurassic Punk, which is about Steve Williams, who is, if you're a Jurassic fan and you don't know that name, stop listening to the podcast, unsubscribe from the channels, and get the hell out. But seriously, Steve Spaz Williams, absolute legend, is part of the reason, one of the main reasons Jurassic Park became
Mm.
the visual effects genius movie that it did. He was one of the pioneers of that. The documentary follows his career from Terminator 2 through that, and then also the kind of when he left Hollywood. It's really fascinating. He's a great person, great documentary. The guy who made the documentary is a great filmmaker. You should check that all out. Jurassic Punk, it's called. You can check that out on Jurassic Outpost. And the final mention I want to give is that Dominion was shortlisted for a VFX Oscar, which is huge. Shortlist
Congratulations, teams.
Doesn't mean nomination, but very close to being nominated.
Yes.
I'm not sure when.
Yes.
I think it's in January the nominations come out, but
sure.
Do you have the whole
good
full
for them.
list?
I mean, the VFX in Dominion was the best of the three overall, I would say.
I mean, it's good. There's great VFX work in it. I think a lot of the best VFX works is stuff you don't even realize, like the stuff they did with the plane combination of miniature shooting and VFX and everything like that. I think that there's a lot more happening in that movie than people realize. I don't necessarily think it's going to get the full nom. It's certainly not going to win, but
I think it will. I'll read the list, guys. I'll read the list. It's not that big. We got obviously All Quiet on the Western Front. We got the new Avatar movie. We got Bardo on Netflix. We got the Batman, Black Adam, the new Black Panther, Devotion from Sony Pix, the new Doctor Strange, Elvis.
that got shortlisted.
Yeah, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, never mind.
Everything everywhere all at once.
Competition.
So you get it, right? And then Jurassic World Dominion's obviously on there. RRR, shout out for the Indians. Obviously, shout out. Top Gun Maverick, Thor. So I can see it. I can see it making the list.
Okay, it's Avatar. It's Avatar, the Batman, and Jurassic. I think those are the three main players.
And Top Gun.
Top Gun,
right?
Top Gun also, yeah, that's a movie that you forget has so much.
Avatar, it's going to be Avatar.
It's going to be
Avatar.
Of course,
congratulations to all the teams, though. Good, they finally got recognized more than the other three movies or two movies. It seems.
All those Marvel noms make no sense. The Marvel movies recently have had some of the worst CG. I mean, it looks expensive. It just looks really like.
Well, they're not noms. Remember, this is shortlist.
Yeah.
So it's
not
they're like the same team.
They'll be nominated though. There always are.
There was on there, and Marvel stuff has really been wacky lately. Which there's a lot of conversation about how the studio interferes with those movies and keeps changing it, and the VFX houses are under crunch. So it's no hate towards the VFX houses. They're working against the tide, and they're having their asses handed to them, and it's because Marvel can't make up their mind. They're constantly changing things. So
yeah, and it's also very rarely ever the VFX team.
Oh yeah, it's almost always on the studio and the director and they're notes and everything like that. That they're like, oh, okay, well, if you're telling us we have to do it this way, we'll do it this way, but we don't think it's going to work the way you think. But you got to do what you got to do.
As Colin said on Twitter, though, congratulations to the entire VFX team for the shortlist. That is great, and I do hope it gets the nomination. It won't
absolutely,
but it'd be great to have Jurassic World nominated for an Oscar. But we all know Oscars are bought and paid for, so it doesn't really matter anyway.
No, I'm just gonna say I would love if it did get nominated because I felt that the Blu-rays special features really didn't dig into the making of nearly as much as they could have. And if it gets the nom, I could see how IOM does their own little making of sometimes for their YouTube channel. I could see that pushing IOM to do a nice little 5-minute, 10-minute making of thing for their YouTube channel for Dominion. And I would love to see a little bit more on how they combine
behind the scenes
VFX with practical and CG and the sets and everything. I would love to see more of that.
Especially nowadays,
I find that fascinating.
yeah, that knowing that this was the movie with the most animatronics
Yeah.
in, it would be good to see how they 20 years on from at least the last Jurassic, how did they really bring it together and make it pretty seamless, because it is. It's a great visual effects movie. But I think we should talk about Dominion. We should talk about its extended cut, and I think we should talk about the studio notes that were sort of leaked, and we'll give some context to that.
Before we start getting in depth with our discussion, I want to go around the table first and ask: do you guys, what are your thoughts of Dominion's extended cut? Where does it sit in the pantheon of Jurassic? Give us a hint. Give us a
I'll go
teaser.
first.
Jack, go ahead.
I'm going to go first,
buddy.
purely because this is where I have to tell everybody.
Uh-oh.
I haven't seen the extended cut, and therefore I'm not going to comment on the extended cut. It's not fair. I know people say
You'll be moderating.
I will watch the extended the next time I watch Dominion, which will probably be never. But I think
I'm going to make him watch it, chat and fans. Don't worry.
I can't comment too much because I haven't seen the extended. But please run me through it. And I know that it does open with the prologue, right? So I'm super pumped for the prologue. I love that sequence. But Chris, thoughts on the extended?
It doesn't really change my opinion of the movie too much. I think that most of the scenes that are in there, you do watch it and go, why the hell did they cut this? And maybe in your mind, you're like, they should have probably, like, it's just one of those things where the things that they cut, it was clearly to hit an arbitrary runtime, which Colin has said as much, but like it's not enough to sway your opinion of the movie, but it certainly cut scenes that when you watch it, you go, well, they definitely shouldn't have cut this scene, to be fair. And then there's a few scenes that I'm like, why did they add this back in?
Oh yeah.
There's a few scenes in there that like should have been left on the cutting floor, like
never even have filmed. Honestly, if I'm being
like the Grant at the dig site moment. I mean, I love what they're going for, but it was horribly directed.
Just talking to no one.
It just seemed.
Oh my god.
Well, no, he's talking to
the girls.
He's like
the young teenagers.
Right, in the extended, yeah.
Yeah, but it feels like a 50-year-old trying to write like
it's the most millennial stereotypical TikToker talk.
It feels like procedural TV writing. It's really weird. It seems very inconsistent with the rest of the movie. The writing's really bad there. The directing isn't great there. And then it gets back into its flow, and you're watching it going, yeah, this feels like a cut.
Don't need this scene.
It feels like a scene that normally you would watch at like an editing bay and go, man, we did not stick the landing with this one. Cut. It doesn't need it, and it's not well made. It feels like a B team. It feels like they gave it to somebody else to do that scene. It does not.
That's what I feel weird about that in the non-extended cut, is that whole sequence really is just like so.
And I'm sure this version is trimmed down quite a bit, and we know from concept art originally he was supposed to be giving a talk in front of a mating ritual of apatosauruses. Originally, apatosauruses were going to walk out, and he was going to be interrupted, and then start talking about like he was just not going to be able to help himself, and start talking about
why do we do
it? He can't help himself in front of a mating ritual. Oh, Jesus.
Also, he gives the most unscience. It's the science talk he gives. Science is truth, and truth is in this. That's no science. Is
like that's supporter.
That's what people like who don't know science say about science, where they think scientists are like, it's the facts and the facts never change. No, science isn't. You're doing the best that you can, but anyhow, it just the whole thing is really weirdly written. It was very strange. I don't like it.
No, but before that scene though, before the Grant introduction scene, the extended cut does have more of the Ellie Sattler at the farm scene. It just shows her more inside the kids with the locust kind of doing some field work. I thought that scene was kind of cool.
Nice slow moment.
Ellie, seeing Ellie just do her thing in her moment.
Okay, timing, but like that all seems like that's build up, that's tension,
it's Ellie doing what she's good at, her profession. It's her being a professional.
It's a nice slow breathing moment where you just get inside and you get to see Ellie, kind of trying to figure this out, and I like that. You also, if I'm not mistaken, don't you get more time with Grant and Ellie inspecting the locust in the extended cut?
Yeah, so in the extended cut, you get the scene in the tent. It's obviously more extended, and it feels less awkward. Like when Grant cuts to the talk about the relationship, it's much more smooth and like a natural transition versus like, let's have talk about this. Oh, how are your kids? Oh, you're divorced. Whoopsies. Hello. Yeah, it's much more natural in that sense. And then they're also talking about the locust itself, like the actual issue of what's going on in the
Grant,
world. I don't get why you cut again.
Grant seems a little bit more able-minded, like a little bit more on top of his things and less like, oh, Ellie, oh. Which, don't
Like
get me
fumbling
wrong.
all over the place.
Don't get me wrong. That is funny, and that moment works for Grant. I think it makes sense. It does very much feel real. It just feels like the wrong thing to focus on. And I definitely think that the movie hurt by cutting a lot of these scenes. A lot of these scenes do seem to have a lot of heart. They're not largely going to change the movie, but there's certainly scenes we watch and go, damn, why would they cut that? Because it is better. And yet, you can't help but get the feeling that you're only getting a third of what they shot still, even in the extended cut. You can't get help.
Apparently, according to Sam Neill, there's a 6-hour version of Dominion.
Now, I am sure that's exaggerated, but
yeah, of course it is.
But that does not shock me. This is getting ahead of ourselves, but maybe let's just seed it and then we'll talk about it later. Dominion was originally going to be 2 movies.
Whoa, okay. I did not know this.
Originally, Jurassic World 3 and Jurassic World 4, they were going to film in the same filming session, and they were going to release a few months apart from one another.
And this was way pre 2020.
Yeah, but
global.
early documents, casting sheets, everything like that, internal stuff in the film industry that you can get access to, but like kind of stays on the down low. It was originally Jurassic World 3 and Jurassic World 4. It was written as 2 movies that they were going to tell an overarching story, but we're not necessarily talking part 1 and part 2, but sort of part 1 and part 2. We're thinking like Infinity War and Endgame, but like they still self-contain. I don't know how good it would have been, but if you wonder why Dominion feels slapped together, that is why, because it was 2 3-hour movies
put together, essentially
6 hours slapped together, trying to become a 2.5-hour movie.
I just love the overconfidence of it, like coming off of Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom to be like, yeah, let's do double. It's like, come on, guys.
I mean,
they still had the momentum back then, though.
For that plot, it makes sense. I don't think there's anything wrong about putting Jurassic World 3 and 4 a year apart from one another.
No, it's just like, I mean,
and then sort of closing it out.
Fallen Kingdom, I'm just like, maybe they needed to really rethink what they were doing, but
that's for sure.
Do you guys?
It's crazy.
Do you guys want to like do a quick like run through, kind of like start to end? I got the movie in front of me. We can do a quick like start to end, like quick 10 minutes of like what they actually added.
Do you remember when we used to do those?
Oh my god, minute by minute, second by second. The minutes like the trailer 2 minutes are,
stuff.
Yeah,
they like go over literally every frame.
Frame by frame.
Pretty much.
Well,
but there's some good shit in here.
That's when we thought the story would be a little deeper and more complex, and we thought there were things to analyze. And then we'd be like,
that was when we were young and naive. We had so much faith in the team, but like I don't know. Before even that, like we'll just get back to the extended cut here. Like even
talk about
before
Blue?
that, not Blue yet. I want to talk about Owen. The Owen introduction. So we get more of the Owen and Rain Delacourt stuff, more of why they're actually butting heads and kind of things. We see why Owen actually shows. Yeah, Owen shows some actual character development.
I got the Rain Delacour thing. I have to say, like, me and Chris received a package of part of Beyond the Gates, and this was before we knew character names, and it had Rain Delacour on the pack. I think we were on a call, and we just couldn't stop laughing.
Long before we knew. So like we got this in like January of last year. Like we got it incredibly early, or maybe December. And we opened it. We're like, who the hell is Rain Delacour?
Rain Delacour, and he had like the big trench coat on. I was like, what is this movie?
And it was paired with Owen and Blue, and like they had knives, and on the back of the package it looked like they were kung fu fighting each other.
That's it. Yeah, it had the little knife.
Yeah.
Funny. But sorry, go on. So
no, that's pretty much it. Knives. It kind of gives you why they're at like knives with each other later on in the movie, and then it shows kind of Owen being more of a father figure and kind of less of that kind of badass cowboy kind of guy, more of a father figure to Maisie and husband to like boyfriend or whatever to Claire.
Yeah, you get the stick up where Rain when Owen catches the parasaur. Which, to be clear though, it's never. Why was Owen even catching that one solo parasaur?
It's not that. That's not important.
Godly, no idea. Why did Rain decide to capture that parasaur at gunpoint rather than go to the herd and then just capture one of those other ones? Again, I don't know. But you get the context.
He does hard work for him.
Rain pretends to be DFW, and Owen's like, funny because these guys I'm with, and they show their DFW badges. He's like, how much does parasaur bone powder go for on the market? And you get this crazy number. And then you understand why Rain is stealing it. Now, you still don't understand what Owen's doing. But anyways, there's a bit of a showdown. They got like them at gunpoint, and Owen says, "You know what? Take the dinosaur." And the guys that he's with afterwards are like, "There's no need to back down from a fight." And he says, "Yeah, but I got a family now." And you're like, "Oh, okay." You understand what Owen's priorities, and that sort of does seem important to set up.
Mhm.
Also, that
It's
way,
important for
Rain.
his character, very important
Yeah.
for his character. And also, sorry, the Rain Delacour character literally has no introduction in the non-extended cut. He's just there
Yeah.
for a bit.
He's
He's just there, yeah.
And it's just like,
He's the
why
bad
is
guy.
he getting so much attention when you're not telling me who the fuck he is? It's so
Yeah.
weird. It's very weirdly handled, and it sounds like what was cut is just really
It builds him up as a little bit more of a character because he's supposed to be this through line character. My guess is he was supposed to be the villain of part one. Before I imagine part one was gonna be like on mainland, up to Malta, and then part two is gonna be like the Biosyn movie. Do you know what I mean? I imagine that was gonna be the structure of these films. So it makes sense. Rain was the part one villain, Dodson was the part two villain.
And just hearing it the way you describe it like that, I do feel like part one set the way it was set and sort of ending with Malta maybe on the plane or whatever, however it would be, that would have been very
because then it would have been
it would have like
the race.
No jungle, nothing, just like pure. Sorry, I hit the mic. Like pure.
He's excited, guys. He's excited.
Different environments feel different, and it's contained within Malta and maybe another.
It would have had more mainland stuff as well.
Mainland movie, and then you get the jungle sort of back in
then you get the isolated environment, the company doing the like, oh shit, here we go again. I think that would have worked a lot more. Because that's one of the main criticisms of Dominion is a lot of people like, there's a lot of great ideas, but you seeded this dinosaurs are finally on mainland movie and then just blow past it and don't really care to make anything about it. And it's like, yeah, that's true. It's really weird. And then the end of Dominion basically just ends up at the same part where Fallen Kingdom ended. Where it's like, by the way, they're on mainland. It's like, yeah that's what you set up with the last movie, and then ignored it.
Nothing changed.
Movie.
But that's a note we'll get into later on. We'll talk about that. It's an issue that was spotted early on. But yeah, we go back to we talked about the scene with Grant and Ellie. We get more with Baby Blue.
Oh,
Blue
yeah,
and her baby.
Blue and
arguably
kill some hunters.
I think arguably or like generalizing here, but I think everyone can agree this is probably a scene that should have never been filmed and is quite embarrassing. Actually, Jack, if you've not seen it, I urge you to look it up on YouTube before your day is up and somehow convince yourself that this was actually put on screen.
Which one was it?
Which scene?
It's when Blue is going slow motion with the weird
slow-mo run. It's so bad,
and she's moving her head straight without her body moving.
Was this she in when you first see her with Baby Blue?
It's when
and the hunters start shooting her.
Yeah, and then right as she's going to kill the hunters, it's like a slow-mo run.
But for some reason, Colin loves Blue in slow-mo because it happened in friggin' the first movie, the second movie, and the third movie. What's up with the raptors in slow-mo?
The idea of a raptor-like dinosaur with this type of relationship is a curious idea, and I don't necessarily hate it. What I don't like is how it's been handled. But whatever, that's a different conversation for a different day.
But then, we just get more of the same stuff, just stuff with Biosyn, nothing just really that intense. But we do get another big thing. There's the Oviraptor fighting the Lystrosaurus.
Right.
Controversial again. I personally think it's not necessary in the film. I don't know why they filmed it. It seems like it doesn't. It doesn't fit this movie. It's like a cartoon scene in a serious Jurassic movie.
They filmed an abusive animal cage match as a joke, and I cannot get over that.
It's played off as a joke. That's a good way to put it, Chris.
And the Oviraptor starts its headless body starts running around, and it's filmed like a big joke. And you got to remember, these are abused animals in cages being forced to fight each other.
It goes against the entire message of the
themes of this entire franchise, or even what they're trying to tell us. But then it's have your cake and eat it too type of thing, where it's like, you're trying to say that this is bad, but then you're also making a giant joke out of it. I can't believe they filmed that scene. I mean, from a VFX standpoint, it's cool looking, but there's so many other ways you could have shown something that is cool looking and achieved a moment like this without being so mean-spirited. It is so tone deaf, and I don't understand why it was shot and why it made the final cut. It shouldn't
Especially
exist.
with how the commentary has been throughout the production and throughout what Colin wanted to talk about with poaching and things like that. And with Bryce Dallas Howard, do you remember the Nasutoceratops image?
Save our animals.
Saving animals and stuff. It's crazy that scene would have made it in, but
it makes no sense. It truly flabbergasted.
Very tone deaf, almost.
Okay, what's next, Asees?
So the next big thing is basically all the stuff that we see play out is just basically extended scenes, little bits and pieces here. They're nothing too consequential. We can basically see why it was cut out. As a fan, it's nice to have back in. But the next real big thing I would say is towards the end of the movie, where Ramsey and Lewis Dodson have their moment inside the network.
Yeah, that one should
That I think
been cut. It's huge.
it actually gives us some backstory as to Ramsey's character. He's not just a guy who just appears and then helps Grant for no reason. You kind of get more as to what he's doing and as to what actually happened that caused this whole locust incident in the first place. It wasn't really explained in the original cut. Extended cut gives more of a backstory. Still not my favorite device they could have used to have sent it in. Like, I don't understand why the locust. You could have used dinosaurs for the same message, but just gives more backstory.
Biosin messed up, and then they tried to cover it up, and it just kept escalating from there. And then you're like, oh, okay, this feels realistic. But if this movie was going to be about the locust, the inciting incident should not have been the prologue. It should have been about Biosin and the locust. You know, this, if you wanted this to be the plot, it should have been seeded as the plot instead of saying it's the plot, but then throwing it at random elements and then cutting your scene that's your big reveal. And one of the only scenes in the movie that feels like it's Jurassic Park, where it's two characters debating a point of view of ethics. And you've got the guy that's going, well, you're just young and naive, and that's not how the world works, kid. And you got him going, no, you're just jaded and basically trying to make any excuse to make yourself feel like the good guy. And it's quite a good scene. And then it ends with a really silly line where it's like, it's chomp or be chomped. And then you're like, why did you have to throw that line in such a great scene? But otherwise, it was a great scene.
Yeah, but that pretty much, then you go from there, and then you pretty much end the movie as you usually would. When you hit the ending of the T-Rex being down and getting that weird flashback, it makes it interesting. I don't like it, but people like it, I guess.
Jack, so in the extended cut, when the T-Rex has its near-death scene and the lightning flashes, well, in the extended cut, when the lightning flashes, it has feathers in the background.
65 million years ago.
It's remembering its original death, and it's like, not again. It is
DNA ancestry or something.
Bad.
Oh my god.
Once again, that should not be in there. It's insane. It's
so cheesy.
It's Bananarama. This movie is Bananarama.
Just holding your hand.
It's got so many elements that are so good, and then it's got elements like that, and you're just like, what is going on?
I saw a lot of debate about the about that little flash of the. Some people were saying that's genetic memory. Some people saying that was just
how it works.
A reminder. I was like, it doesn't matter what it was for. Both
it's
are
stupid.
And if you thought that was good, God help you in films, because that it's so silly. It's not even needed. We just watched the movie.
How is that a Jurassic Park
movie? We get it. We don't have to. We don't need a reminder.
Something that happened 90 minutes ago. I don't need reminding.
The prologue should not be in the movie. It has nothing to do with the movie. It has nothing to do with the plot.
But the prologue is one of the best things about Dominion.
Sure.
And it's not supposed to be in the movie.
But sure, it shouldn't be in the movie is the thing, though, because it does nothing for the plot. It doesn't make sense. It's not needed. It's shot beautifully, but all it does is just rewrite scientific history.
Well, and the only good thing it adds is the T-Rex. The T-Rex at the cinema scene. I think I like that as the inciting incident. I still like.
The T-Rex in the cinema should have been in there. When I say the prologue, I only mean the 65 million years.
The 65, yeah, for sure. It doesn't really fit. It doesn't make sense. You don't need it. Maybe at the end it would have made more sense.
The cinema sequence, I have to admit, that it felt like the real opening. It felt
like that was really well directed.
Introducing the movie. If the movie had been about dinosaurs in the mainland, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot to debate about that. But yeah, that genetic memory flash at the end, I just thought it was quite funny. It's a cool shot, don't get me wrong, but I don't need to be reminded of something that that opened the movie. Like I was there when it happened 90 minutes ago. That's what I struggle with in like things like that. And seeing the online debate, I didn't tweet a single thing. I still, I haven't watched the extended cut, but seeing
it's not even that. It's like the way the dinosaurs filmed. It's like you never get that type of scene in the OG grounded, in the OG trilogy. All the shots are more grounded. Like it's like this aerial shot zoomed in. Like you never had that in the previous movies. That's why it just feels so disconnected from the franchise. I just think it doesn't fit. It feels like a different thing entirely.
Well, because it doesn't care about its actual underlying story. It just is trying to do some anime bullshit.
That's what it feels like, man. It feels like an anime movie.
Some cage match anime bullshit. And
like there's no reason for the Therizinosaurus to be there. Nothing.
No, yeah, I mean, it that whole end fight is really bad.
I'm flicking through Dom now extended just to see, and just visually, because it's on mute, obviously. Just visually, like it feels like I don't want this to be misconstrued, but it does feel like a parody of itself. It feels like there's so many elements to it. Like when you cut to the CIA headquarters and you've got Nedry sat there, and it just
You got the
feels like
Bourne
it's
Identity
trying
movie.
to do too many things that aren't. It's really hard to explain.
It
But there
tries
are
to
so many
go away.
moments in the
It tries
movie
to
that it just
break new ground for Jurassic, but it tries to do too much at once.
There's a lot of elements in it that are good. There's a lot of elements in it that are clever, but it really comes down to the execution, and then the fact that they can't seem to hold themselves back from doing the stupidest bullshit in what would otherwise be something that could be grounded and really drive the story forward.
But
The problem is the really silly stuff is they get so distracted by the silly stuff that they lose the actual plot and they start focusing on the silly stuff. It's like the cameraman goes, "Oh, what's going on over here?" And then, like, as a viewer, we're taking on this like B plot of goofiness instead of like the A plot of like what really matters over here. And the movie becomes so divorced from
the
its own.
tension in this film just gets just gets popped like a balloon every time.
Now, I
there's
still
very
enjoy,
little,
Starting to
except for
build
that
up,
one scene, except for the Therizinosaurus scene, which we
except
all,
for
I
the
think,
very scene.
that
universally is
scene's
loved by
shot
everyone.
so well. It's bizarre.
Mhm.
Like, when I
Um,
said like some scenes, like when I said the one Grant scene felt like it was filmed by somebody else, the Therizinosaurus also seems like it's filmed by somebody else in a good way, whereas it's just such another level than most of the filmmaking.
But I'd
Um,
say the same about the cinema opening scene and
yeah,
also the
yeah,
prologue as well. The prologue is mostly a visual effects masterpiece, but like the way it's just paced, the way it's put together, it's beautiful. Every reveal of every dinosaur
It
is
doesn't flow
gorgeous,
though.
and it. Say again.
Doesn't flow with the rest of the movie. You're trying to
doesn't
say.
No,
flow
no,
and
it doesn't flow.
it's not
As a
needed.
separate entity, that opening is just, it's
Yeah.
gorgeous, it's beautiful, and
Mhm.
it's such a
Mhm.
pretty sequence to have in a Jurassic.
It's a
And then
showcase.
the opening, the actual modern day cinema opening is
But
fantastic. It's
there's
such a
no.
great scene, and it doesn't feel like it really fits with the
The
rest.
thing is there's no
Very, yeah.
reasons why the main A plot couldn't have had scenes like the prologue scenes where you have the large herd of Nasutoceratops and whatnot, like meandering across the river. Like our characters in modern day could be encountering situations like that.
Oh yeah,
You
senses
can
of
both get the
scenes of
naturalistic,
wonder.
you can get
Yeah.
the naturalistic beauty and wonder mixed into a scene where our characters have to go to point A to point B to do something and have the tension coming from the wonder. But the problem is this movie treats these things like separate entities that can never collide. So you get these little moments of like wonder that are like completely divorced from anything our characters do, and everything our characters do feel like an anime. It's just a shame because it was so close to getting it, but it just doesn't. It's certainly understood. At times, you see where the elements are coming from, where you're like, "Oh, I do see what you're trying to approach and do differently than you've done in the past." But yeah, I don't know. I've really soured on Dominion. I
Oh,
still
that's
enjoy it a
unfortunate.
lot more than Fallen Kingdom. I still enjoyed it a lot more than Fallen Kingdom, but it just the thing is it's hard not to be specific with your wishes and wants for a movie when a movie tries to focus on fan service so much, which I don't necessarily
Yes.
think is a good thing. But if you're going to try to do fan service, at least do it right. And this movie doesn't. It lost the plot immediately, and that's nothing but frustrating. I just want to give a shout out to Star Wars Andor, which is
Oh my God!
If
Please,
you're
yes.
listening out there, Star Wars Andor,
Star Wars
the
Andor.
the complete opposite of
Number one
what
fan.
Dominion does. It just focuses on its story. It
Mhm.
focuses on its logic. It
No
focuses on
fan
its
service.
characters. It does not give a shit about fan service. And it is one of the most enjoyable. I'd say it's the best Star Wars thing that's ever existed. Now it wouldn't exist without the original
Sure.
Star Wars movies, but
So since the
it's,
original, the best thing has come out.
it's so good. And it's
It treats
funny.
its audience like an adult.
It just takes itself seriously, and I think there's something for everyone to enjoy because it just puts the story first, it puts the characters first. And that's not to say there aren't cool sequences. There are a lot of cool sequences in it. It's just not bogged down by bizarro interpretations of fan service. And it just doesn't treat its audience like idiots.
I
Because
want to say
that is
this
one of
though.
the things that seems to happen is seems like studios in their notes and the directors and the writers all seem to have a very low opinion of the audience. And I understand that sometimes audiences eat up low tier quality low tier content, But the problem is they pigeonholed themselves into making that type of content, assuming that's the only type of content they can digest. And you see that with a lot of blockbusters now. And Jurassic World Dominion feels so cynical of the audience. It feels.
I wouldn't say that. I don't feel that way.
Oh, I definitely think that. I think that it. The Jurassic World movies as they go on seems to hate the audience more and more. It seems to think less of the audience more and more because it seems to dumb itself down, where it tries to put little elements of complexity into largely knockoff Marvel baloney. I don't know. Baloney.
I will say this though, despite what we've said so far, and I think I've stayed the most positive about Dominion from the start, I still think this is my third favorite Jurassic movie of the franchise, behind JP 1 and 3. Obviously, I see Jack's face, like he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, I still like this movie. I'm disappointed by what the end result is, what we could have gotten, but based off what we have now, I enjoy it still. I give it a good 7.5 on 10. I think it's still a fun ride, and I don't know, I still like it. I don't know why.
That's a good thing though, and I'm glad you have that feeling for it. I still feel like you could delete Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, and this could be the fourth.
That's how I
movie.
watch it. That's how I watch it.
Okay, and I feel like I'd be in a better position if that had happened, because at least we'd be like, right, well, the next one they might get right. But we're at a point now where that is marketed as the last movie. Obviously not. We know it's not, but that was supposed to be the end of that trilogy.
It's hard not to.
I hope it is. By the way, I hope this is the end of this. I hope we start brand new, fresh.
No, God, no, they can't reboot it. No, it'll be if anything, it'll be another soft reboot. It'll be an approach like Jurassic World, where it's like, okay, here's the world that you know. Some things have changed now. Let's take a look at it from a new, fresh perspective. And I think
that's going to start fresh like that with new characters. I don't want any new returning characters. I want fresh characters, all that stuff, fresh storylines.
Yeah. I think they
no more fan service. We've had 3 movies of fan service. No more.
Personally, something Chris said before is that the fan service is if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. And I feel like even in Jurassic World, fan service felt like I didn't get what I, as a fan, should have got from the fan service.
Well, if you're going to put Grant in the movie,
I rolled my eyes because it wasn't accurate or wasn't right. Like the visitor center was just really handled poorly in Jurassic World. I'll never let that go because it was so easy to get it right. Same with like in Fallen Kingdom, the Jeep, the Explorer, the whole
moment falls flat because it's you're looking at it going, wait, what? Like
it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel Jurassic.
Do it, but don't. Or I think more importantly, if you're going to bring a character like Grant back, it's fine if you use him for comedy elements. And I think that the way that they used his sort of stuck in the past mentality and being a little emotionally unavailable and building on that comedy, that makes sense. But the thing is, the movie also forgot that he's a very respected paleontologist who knows so much about these animals, and who also, when the going gets tough, he pulls his act together, and he's not your traditional action hero, but he knows how to be that type of character who's smart, respected, methodical, and can get through a situation. In this movie, he's just a blumbering oaf.
He's led 2 movies of characters to survival.
They've never given him a moment.
Some bumbling idiot.
He's like the grandpa they'll help through Disneyland. They get lost and fall over.
You don't get that moment of why is Dr. Grant respected? What can he do? What can he offer to this movie? He doesn't offer anything to the movie.
He tells you the dinosaur's name at the end. Biggest dinosaur the world has ever seen. You got that wrong too.
When it was announced that they were going to be in it, I remember, and you could probably go back on the old pods and find me saying it's going to be awful. They're not going to be respected well. And some people like it, and I'm really thankful for that. I'm glad that some people can get some enjoyment. I feel like bringing those 2 characters back as an insult to their legacy, the way it was handled. And the same with Jeff Goldblum. It's such a bizarre...
I am over Malcolm anyhow. There's too much Jeff Goldblum.
It wasn't Malcolm, it was Goldblum.
Yeah, we're all done with these guys.
Maybe not even
they're all done.
Doing it's Goldblum is Goldblum now. He's really...
I think they're done with it too at this point.
I think that the marketing that we like,
Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler, bringing them back, I thought it wasn't great, and they didn't feel like my Alan Grant and my Ellie Sattler, if I'm honest. But
I felt like Sattler was closer. I felt like, unfortunately, we didn't get a focus on like all the right elements. And listen, when Grant was in the tent, you get some really great Grant moments there. Just even that stare when she's like, "Are you coming?" and he's just like, "Oh God damn it!" That stare, that's a very Grant moment. And then he just turns into satirical Grant, which It
They all just feel like set pieces.
it
And if
makes
you
you
watch
laugh in the moment until the end of the movie. I mean, like, remember that? Like, there's like a joke in the movie about Malcolm getting a callus on his leg from a dog humping it too much.
Great joke, by the way. I love that joke. It still makes me laugh.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, I like that joke. I don't care. I don't even
That
find it
is
funny.
so wildly insane and has no.
That joke hits every time I watch it in a group. Always hits. People love that
Well,
thing.
yeah, it's more of like the fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
This
funny
is
though.
like,
It's
oh,
good
this is
work. I
funny and
love it.
clever, but it's just the movie treats itself as a joke way too often. It treats these characters as a joke way too often, and that can work. But it doesn't have any. It's not like the main plot is so clever outside of that. Like, it's not like we don't have these characters that are really like driving any intelligent discussion. We're not really engaging the audience in the ethical debate that these movies are trying. We're not brought into the
I
debate.
miss
We're not
the
brought
ethical
into the
debate.
discussion. We're not brought into the tension and the damned if you do, damned if you don't, and what do you do in this? None of that. This movie doesn't ask any questions, and it doesn't
That's
ask the
Thank you,
audience to
Chris.
engage in
That's
any
the
question.
problem with it. I wanted a Jurassic movie where I walk away and I'm debating with you guys for the next like 3-4 pods whether the message of the movie is like what you thought, whether you're on this side or that side of the message.
You
Where
don't have characters
there's none of that
imparting.
here.
You don't have characters imparting wisdom. You don't have
No,
characters making tough choices. You don't
they're
have
just
growth
running
and
away from
development.
animals.
The most growth you get from Grant is he finally gets the guts to say, Ellie, yeah, you're right. Let's do this, which
Mm.
is nice, I guess. You know what? I used to be against it, but it
This
works.
good
It
stuff.
actually, the
We
way
love
that
it.
they
We love
handled
it.
it,
Yeah, you do.
they
Good
handed
man.
him being like emotionally unavailable and kind of like just becoming glued to his work rather than like investing in relationships. That works. Now, I wish that there was more to it with him, but like that is at least a nice little bookend on Grant, despite making him seem a little senile.
It does seem like in Dominion that the especially the original cast that were brought back, but mostly everybody, especially in the scene where everybody's together, is like 10 people in the when they're evading the Giga.
Oh
And if
god,
you
it's
actually
really
watch the scene,
strange.
you're just like, who is where? Where is everybody in this scene? Where are they coming from? Like,
It's
it's
The
so
blocking?
badly
incredibly
put
poorly
together.
shot.
Nobody blocked that. Like, it directed poorly, and it's just it leads me to think like these people are just they're
Also, just
just set
why is it
pieces.
the ending?
They're props. Like, oh, we need Alan Grant to say a funny line, and then just not have him for 10 pages. And then you, Chris Pratt, say a funny, do the thing and say funny, and then Maisie make a thing, and then let's get Malcolm to say something funny because the fans will love that. And it just all feels so badly put together, and it's not what I wanted from these movies. I wanted,
As the
like
movie
Chris said,
gets
a deep conversation with Ellie 30 years on from the original incident on that park, and they're still fucking around with dinosaurs. They should be talking and discussing and freaking the fuck
There's
out.
no deep conversation.
no, we don't
Nothing.
engage in a
Speaking
conversation.
Speaking on the route we're on, though, speaking of this, we should just start talking the notes, right? Since we're talking
Okay,
about things that we want to see differently, let's get into the notes and hop into it. Let's just keep this thing rolling, guys.
It's
okay. Can
round
you
it in. So,
that's in?
Chris, if you could give us some context to, we're going to call them studio notes.
I got
Okay.
some notes of my own too.
So I guess a little bit of history. Some people know about this. I don't know if it's widely known, but people have known about it, talked about it. It's like public. It's just not the most widely known. On
Declassified.
Reddit before the movie came out. In fact, like I think while it was still filming, there was a leak of a plot summary from somebody who was privy to the plot and somebody who gained access. This is a pretty big leak, and it's a big security issue that was, I believe, taken care of. But it was posted to Reddit, and Reddit's auto mods pruned it because of like the keywords of being leaked and everything like that. So it never became visible outside of like the moderating team. But obviously, moderating team is human and fans, so eventually it makes its way online. We'll leave it at that. But it was a summary of the plot and then internal notes. To understand the note giving process, sometimes there's notes given to the directors and the writers. In this case, it was the notes commissioned by the execs at the film studio to say, okay, weigh in on this story so then we can make decisions that then we can impart to the directors. These are not notes given to Colin. These are notes given to, we're not talking marketing teams. We're talking like, the real execs, probably the producers and the really big high ups, heads of like film and whatnot. And it was the notes of it was a review of the script, and it was a basic rundown of this works, this doesn't work, what's going on here, this is an improvement from the last draft. And it's interesting because you learn some things. You learn that David Attenborough was originally going to have a cameo in the film, among other things. This is a very real thing, and it's sort of unheard of. You don't see these types of. This is
I've
like
never seen this with the
this
Jurassic,
is on the
especially
tier.
Jurassic.
This is on the tier of when Sony was hacked and all their studio notes and emails became available. This is one of those things, and it's
Deeply
utterly
internal.
fascinating. It's eternal. Again, Colin would not have seen these notes. These notes would go to the people that would then eventually choose to pass on.
The people who pay the money,
Yeah,
essentially. The people who pay for
it
it.
would pass on the watered down notes to Colin if they choose to pass them down and on. These notes are brutal. They're from a writer. They're from a film writer.
Sorry. Do you not feel like Colin would have seen these notes?
No. These were not for Colin.
As the key writer on the movie, though.
No, because this goes to the studio, the people in charge, and then they decide how to impart it, and then they would find their own way to word it. These would never go to Colin. These are directed solely to the highest stakeholders, the highest level producers, and then they can choose whether or not they agree with the notes. They're obviously, like, the notes say, like, cut Beta from the film because she's pointless, and the studio is obviously never going to do that because they're going to go, but we can market a baby raptor.
Mattel's like, no, you can't do that.
But I agree with it because Beta just weighs down the movie and overcomplicates it. I totally agree.
And also, sorry, Beta doesn't really have a point to be in the movie. It's really not.
No, exactly. It's so it convolutes the plot so much with the Maisie, Beta, Locust, Charlotte Lockwood, Dr. Wu, that all gets so needlessly convoluted and goofy, where it could have been a lot more streamlined, logical, and not so messy. If you want to do Beta, you could have done two things. Maisie could have showed up at Biosyn and discovered, oh, they have a clone of Blue. It's a baby clone of Blue. Oh, we got to save her because it's a baby clone of Blue. And Owen being like, oh, shit, okay. Or they could have returned back at the end of the movie and been like, Blue had a baby while we were away. What the hell? And that would have been a nice little end cap of the movie if you wanted Beta. But, yeah. Talk about the notes, Asees. You're muted.
I think Asees...
I got it. Sorry, boys. I was coughing. I'm a little bit sick, under the weather. Excuse me, please. Anyways, I'll go over the notes, real quick. These are the things that just kind of jumped out at me. Like, first off, I'll just start from top to bottom here. So, Biosyn made Locust to save the world's food source. It's a little bit different than what the movie had it. I don't exactly remember what the movie was. I think it was just something gone wrong, right? Not necessarily what they wanted to do.
I don't think we ever fully figured out what their intention was. Just that they were genetically modified to work with crops and things. They weren't trying to be evil. They're just trying to make money. And
something else that we've already known is that Lowry was at the CIA meeting instead of Franklin. That's something we've already known about. Something that I found rather interesting was originally Malcolm and Ramsey weren't on the side of Grant and Ellie. So initially, Malcolm didn't actually help Ellie with getting the pass, and Ellie actually had to steal that pass from Ramsey to get into the underground area. I found that interesting. And in this script, it wasn't specified that the Malta Raptors were the Raptors, just kept it generic at Raptors. So I guess that lends credence to the fact that JP3 Raptors were at one point considered. So things are just lining up from based on the rumors. Everything is just starting to connect the dots here. It almost reads like a fake, but it's real.
Available before these things would have been known. Like, these were before people knew Lowry was in the movie in that capacity.
Yeah, there you go.
This dates back well before it was just very silent.
And obviously, like, Jay Johnson would have been in it if the scheduling did.
That still would have happened.
It was supposed to still be Jay Johnson.
Yeah, Malcolm was going to be a sellout. Malcolm was going to have sold it in, like, the big thing was, like, by the end of the movie, he would have been like, you're right, I sold my soul to the devil, essentially. I'm going to be good now.
Yeah, I'll talk about that, too. I have some of that on that, too.
Weird choice.
Yeah, Grant was, like, violent with it. Malcolm, they were, like, at each other in this like, version of the movie, I guess. It was really interesting. Ramsey confiscates the damsels and Ellie gets
really important in movies, turns out. Conflict.
It would have actually had some villains in the movie, except for Lewis Dotson, some actual villainry, and was solely missed. But we'll talk about that later as well.
Dr. Wu's the real villain.
Yeah. So the thing that makes Malcolm go back to the side of Grant and Ellie is actually that when that Dodson leaves Grant and Ellie to die in like not the monorail, like the substation thing, he just left them in the jungle to die, and that's when like Grant or Malcolm has his wake up, being like, "Oh shit, this guy's actually a piece of shit." And then Chris mentioned earlier, David Attenborough was supposed to be what's it called? Supposed to be like the narrator at the start of the movie. This is like the notes from the studio now, or the writer, sorry. This guy's main problem was that there was too many characters pulling the story in too many different directions. A point that I found really interesting, and then this writer also found, was you have a world of open dinosaurs, but in this story, you bring it back into a closed ecosystem, making it completely irrelevant in the world of open dinosaurs. It completely negates it. It's back to being Jurassic Park or Jurassic World again. He also signals that the Maisie's backstory becomes completely complicated and unnecessary. You already had the fact that she was a clone. Why are you starting to walk it back and make it even more complicated when there's easier ways to like genetically clone yourself and have babies now instead of rewriting your own DNA or whatever crazy sci-fi thing they had. Um, the Owen family never feels earned. I kind of agree with that, but I felt like it did a good enough job for what it had to. Biosyn wanted to seed, and yeah, Bio wanted to have like the seed market and have Locust kind of control that as well at some point. Another big problem was there was no real villain, and the thing that we've all been complaining about, and the one I really want to cap off the notes with, is this guy said the Malta stuff felt way too much like a Fast and Furious sequence, even calling it
Yes,
quote unquote a Fast and Furious sequence.
yes, it
Yeah.
does. And I remember that. I remember saying before Dom came out, I was like, I bet you this movie's going to feel like either a Mission Impossible or a Bourne movie. And what does it feel like? It feels like one of them. It just slaps
And
around,
this
especially in that
guy is
Malta
not
scene.
like Chris said. These notes they're not nice. Like they're like it's if something was unnecessary, the guy wrote completely, or the writer completely wrote like this is completely unnecessary. It makes no sense. It's pointless. And it's just brutally honest. It doesn't. It feels like a lot of the complaints that we had. So when I initially read this from Chris, I thought it was like a fake because like it sounds like every single complaint that we've had since the movies come out. But here, this writer's already had it, and for some reason, the studio didn't act on it when they had a
I
chance.
want to so this it's the notes are broken down into segments, okay? So it'll be like Maisie or Biosyn, and this segment is Maisie and Beta. So here's one of the notes. Because the writer then suggests, first they give like a little review of the script, and they're like, it's offering minimal improvements from the last version of the script that we read. Some of these choices are nice. This helps simplify it. This, irons it out. But then it breaks it down into parts, and it talks about what works, what doesn't work. So for Maisie and Beta, I find this fascinating. In order to streamline and simplify an already overcomplicated plot with often contradictory messages, we might consider dropping Beta from the mix. If Dr. Wu's intentions, which never, by the way, seem the same as Dodson's, are to study the parthenogenesis process, then he really wouldn't need to have both Maisie and Beta kidnapped and brought to his lab. He also wouldn't even know about Blue being pregnant. But is that even a big deal anyway? Dinosaurs can already be cloned. And wasn't a pregnant dinosaur already an issue in the very first Jurassic Park film, The Freak of Nature, that the chaotician Malcolm warned everyone about? Further
Yikes.
strengthening, further strengthening the argument to eliminate Beta and focus on Owen and Claire's objectives on rescuing Maisie is the fact that Maisie is their de facto daughter. Finding her should be their only goal. Rescuing her shouldn't be on the same level as rescuing Beta, no matter what promise Owen made to Blue. But Owen risks everything to go back for Beta, undercuts the very idea of what a father would do to protect his daughter. Rescuing Maisie is the important thing. Saving Beta as well seems to be a distant secondary objective. Then it also talks about how Maisie's backstory with Charlotte makes no sense, and things like then
Yeah.
tying that into the Locust, just it's absurd. It really these things should not be interconnected. If you want to have Maisie kidnapped, have her get kidnapped, but don't make her be like the key to save the Locusts. And like it's
Make the suggestion that they made for Maisie's clone is like have Wu want her because she's the only successful human clone, and have her study for that reason. You don't need to tie it to the dinosaurs.
I don't even think that's great.
It doesn't work with Jurassic, but that's a better reason in like a sci-fi
Of
flick
course it
than
works
whatever
with
we got
Jurassic.
now.
It's Crichton. That's what people
I think
say.
it would just be better that
It's Crichton. So dumb.
Yeah. Oh, no, I mean, if you can clone dinosaurs, then why can't you clone humans? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that just to me
I don't
is
know.
a weird stretch at this point in this universe with hybrids. I just wouldn't buy that. Like, Maisie's that miraculous that a human clone got made. I mean, like, just make her just a human clone, sure. But that to me,
It makes her more important,
have
though.
her get kidnapped by the fucking poachers. And then Biosyn be like, why did you kidnap this kid? Oh my God. Okay, now we need to cover this up. What do we do? Because they didn't want people to find out that they were paying poachers. Like they're basically covering up their dirty work on the mainland. Maisie saw she got kidnapped because like we had a witness, and then just make it kind of unravel from there, and less about being key to the plot and more of just being a chaotic act, a random chaotic act that then gets the ball rolling.
Yeah, I totally agreed. And I think the opening of this document actually opens with a kind of summary of the whole thing, right? This latest draft of Jurassic World Dominion offers a number of revisions that improve the screenplay in mostly superficial ways, but largely ignore most of our bigger, more conceptual concerns. And I think that summarizes the whole thing, doesn't it? There are some really
Mhm.
great moments in there, but ultimately the story itself, not what the story is about, but the story, the way it's written, is just it's problematic.
The DNA of the movie is corrupt, if you will.
And it just the thing is these
Very
notes
nice.
across the board address the issues with this movie, and it becomes very clear that the studio just did not want to invest the time into getting it right. And I think
And I think
and
also, sorry, just a really important point, because the online dialogue is really difficult to deal with. It's more like if this was any other movie and these notes had come through, it's not about the fact that this is like, oh, I just don't personally, I don't like Maisie, so I agree with these notes. This is notes about a movie being a movie. You know, this is not
Objective
graphic
notes.
lore. This is about the screenplay isn't making sense to what you're trying to show on screen, basically.
It's a filmmaking process thing.
It's yeah, and I think it's going to get hard. It's difficult for people that really ended up loving Dominion because they see this as a critique where you just didn't like the Maisie
Well, you
character.
should
Like,
be able to,
that's
because
not what this
I'm
is
a
about.
fan. I'm someone who likes this movie, and I can take these criticisms and be like, okay, yeah, these are correct. I wish these were changed. It would make the movie that I like more enjoyable for me. You
Yeah,
can
yeah,
take
that's the
these
thing.
things.
That is the
You
thing.
don't
You
have to
can
attack
enjoy a
this.
movie. You can enjoy a movie, but then also say, but also a lot of these criticisms, while they don't ruin it for the movie, a lot of times there's sometimes criticisms that are objectively like true. Like your subjectivity of the way that you enjoy the movie is fair, but objectively you can tighten up a movie's plot lines. Objectively, a movie can get messy, and whether or not it affects your enjoyment or not is a whole nother conversation. But this really, and what's funny is I think the conversation that I found fascinating is this shows that they were aware of the issues of this movie. This version of the movie did not change very much to the version that we eventually got. It did change, like it again. They took these notes and I guess adjusted the most superficial elements without largely shaking up the. It was probably really late in the game that these notes came in, and they weren't going to drop beta or anything like that. So, like, largely, they didn't shake up the structure of the movie. They just addressed the most superficial, easy things to address, and not the larger plot elements. And I find it fascinating because that goes to show you they knew that this was a troubled movie, and they chose to make it anyhow. And it's possible that some of these issues, and to begin with, this is just the notes that the studio was given. The studio could have their own notes. Their studio might be like, forget what our experts said. We want more beta time in the movie. We want beta to be more important. So you got to understand that a lot of times these notes can be contradictory, but on a level, they're respected expert screenwriter that they work with at the studio largely identified the issues that most fans and most critics had with the movie, and they didn't act on it. And I think that that is a really fascinating insight on movie making now, where they're basically asking for the notes, and then if they don't like them, they're throwing them out, and not in the way of don't like them as in like I don't know. It's just basically like the notes. They're like, oh no, that's these too many. Oh, you're trying to make this movie too. It's just a dumb dinosaur movie. Come on, guys. It doesn't need to be.
That's
For the
the problem.
business of
That's the
it,
other
right?
scary alternative. Do they consider this just a dumb dinosaur movie action, like a dumb Fast and Furious action movie? I hope it doesn't, because Jurassic Park didn't
Because
start there. It
these
had very
notes,
strong beginnings,
these notes take the movie seriously and
like a Jurassic Park almost.
address the perspective of like let's get this right, and the movie ends up just being like, oh, it doesn't really matter. It's a big dumb Fast and Furious blockbuster thing.
Yeah.
And that's my concern for the
Yeah.
we've
future.
seen those a
It's the
lot of movies
concern
today.
here, as you mentioned,
Correct.
these notes came in, and we've ended up with Dominion, which closely resembles these notes to this day. It's a very similar
90% the
movie.
same movie.
90% the same.
90%.
So it's tough knowing that the studio definitely did receive this, and
It's
this
It
is
hurts.
still
frustrating.
the movie
Yeah.
we got. And the same with Fallen Kingdom. I can't imagine there would have been notes. There weren't notes through that were very similar
Well,
to movies
we know there were
people
some.
have
We
with
Yeah,
know
I
there were
mean, we
some.
know that there
We
were
know there were notes.
they had a lot of writers on Fallen Kingdom. I mean,
Yeah.
hell, we found out that David Kep wrote on Dominion, which I found
Frank
shocking.
Darabont also wrote on frickin' Dominion for a little bit.
Yeah,
Dominion, Fallen Kingdom. Frank
Frank
Darabont
Darabont.
and
on
what's his
Fallen
name?
Kingdom.
The Skyfall writer.
Yeah, there you go. What's his face? Green
Just
or whatever his name
wasted
is, or whatever.
talent, but it's sounding like the JP3 script a little bit. You know how they
Yeah,
just
just
kept bringing in different, really talented,
Oh,
high-profile
Alexander
writers
Payne
to
wrote
be like,
JP3.
"What would you do on this movie?" And they're just like, "Well, I wouldn't write this movie because I'm the guy who wrote Sideways," and I'm like, you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, it's strange. But I think coming away from this, it does make me nervous for the future of the franchise. And I think if you're not nervous, then, I mean, cinema is not the same for
Don't know
you
what to
than it
say,
is for
bro.
me.
Don't know what to say. Well,
Yeah,
cinema's
yeah.
different for everyone. Cinema's different for everyone.
It's no, totally. And that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
totally subjective. People can find
Mhm.
enjoyment. But I think that's what we're trying to cut through to is that there can be a movie, or it can be an absolute fucking god awful movie that is your personal favorite movie. It's fine. Enjoyment doesn't need to be a well
Mhm.
structured movie for you to enjoy it, but you have to be
Yes.
able to recognize that there are basic principles in movie and screenplay and storytelling that if they're broken unintentionally or intentionally, like for the wrong reasons, it's just comes off as a bad film. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
flow right, it doesn't feel right, it's missing certain elements. And I think these notes are so eye-opening to the process that the studio has in that screenplay. There's a really interesting bit here. It's like the script opens strong with the Cretaceous era T-Rex giving way to a modern day descendant now running wild in Oregon. It's this kind of action set in the more populated environment that we've been waiting to see again ever since the T-Rex got loose in San Diego way back in the Lost World. And I think like it's such a fascinating point. It is true that we're all waiting for dinosaurs on the mainland because that's what's being set up for 2 movies now. And it didn't really happen. And in Dominion,
It's in an isolated location in the mountain somewhere.
yeah,
It's
and
just
then
that's an island.
Malta,
That's an island. It's no different than an island.
Well, I
yeah,
think it's been being like a rural, isolated location. I think that that's totally fine. They're not going to be in the city.
Malta was great, like purely for introducing dinosaurs in a sandy, deserty kind of like
Yeah, it's
environment.
nice to see a
Fine,
new environment.
cool.
It would
Yeah,
have been
absolutely. But I
dinosaurs.
don't think we got close to the
Mhm.
same feeling of the way that the San Diego. I love the San Diego scene in the Lost World, and I think it was such a necessary end to the Lost World. Finally, being like just 10, 15 minutes of
Well,
a
it's.
dinosaur in a city.
I
You
want
know,
to talk about what's fascinating about that is in the Jurassic Park Ultimate Visual History, we find out why Spielberg made that choice. Because if you
mm,
recall,
Can you tell me?
originally
I
was going
I haven't
to have
read
the
that yet.
mainland. It was not going to be on the mainland. It was going to have the pteranodons and everything like that. But the reason why Spielberg, because originally Spielberg was going to direct Jurassic Park 3,
mm,
and his Jurassic Park 3 plot was going to be dinosaurs getting onto the mainland.
yeah,
And at some point while making The Lost World, he went, you know what? I want to focus on other movies. I don't want to keep doing sequels. I'm not
Damn
going
it, Spielberg.
I'm not going to do JP3, but I really want an opportunity to do a dinosaur in a mainland environment. So that
yeah.
is why the Lost World's ending changed, because Spielberg wanted his chance to direct a
Oh, he
dinosaur.
always kind of said that in like the
Jurassic Park
behind the
3
scenes in
was
'97 too.
supposed to be
Like, I
mainland.
always
And we
want to do
know.
like
And then
Godzilla
we
sequel.
know
Yeah,
JP3 is originally mainland. Thing is, all these movies handled the mainland plot a lot more
mainland.
gracefully.
Do we
Yeah,
know
look
anything
at the
about
San
that plot,
Diego
by the
one.
way?
Middle of the night, San Diego. So it's a city, but it's not like LA, New York, or something. And it's really like it's kind of going in the suburban areas. It's not even like smashing down city blocks and stuff and towers. It's a really well put together sequence, especially because the lack of people that were out and about aided to that kind of. It wasn't like a
It's an animal.
fucking
It's like an
gridlock
animal
on those
that got lost
streets.
at night. Yeah, it's not like Godzilla tearing down the city. It's like an animal that wandered in, like a bear wandering in your backyard in like in California,
Oh,
right? It's the
yes.
same idea.
No,
Yeah,
okay,
like a
let's take it a little
T-Rex
bit
walking
further.
down a city suburb. It's such a
Oh, and it
brilliant.
happened to eat your he happened to eat your dog by accident. Like shit. Like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happens in LA with
Well,
coyotes and stuff,
yeah,
right?
or imagine it this way: it's a very stressed animal that was being transported, originally sedated, woken up from the sedation. The transportation device it was in, crashed. This animal was agitated. It's now in the middle of an urban environment, and it's running around confused and agitated.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not just it
brilliant.
wandering
Brilliant
in,
scene.
It
Yeah.
just
That
yeah,
sounds good, but why doesn't the Lost World make it sound like? Why doesn't it look that good in the movie? It
it's
Oh,
sounds
also
cool the way
stop us,
Chris
Pete.
described
It's
it.
brilliant.
No way, Chris described it and it sounded like, well, that sounds good. Where's that from, Jurassic Park?
this was the Lost World.
Oh shit! Oh, shit, check that out.
But I think that is such an interesting point, and I think this note really does do it for me. Like there aren't many scenes in Dominion that give me that same feeling, but also make me feel like the dinosaurs are really that much of a threat to the mainland because they all seem to be able to do
I
it.
mean,
Like,
I found the scene with Zia and them in the the Ceratopsian farm. I found that to be actually really fascinating.
Yes, that was cool.
It
that was cool. That was a well put together scene as well. Nice
Yeah,
job on
it
that.
doesn't necessarily explain what's going on, but I do think exploring things in that direction a little bit more would have been wise. I think figuring out why Owen was capturing the parasaur at the beginning, providing some context and some story there could have been kind of neat.
Oh, like the dinosaurs are starting to like become invasive to the areas or something. That'd
Or
be cool.
we
They're
know
really
the pterosaurs.
Anything, literally anything you're saying, I guess,
Well,
technically.
if you recall, a few years back with Jurassic Outpost, Colin Trevorrow said, "We're not going to change the designs of the dinosaurs previously established. If any dinosaurs come in with a wildly different design, they're going to be made by new people." So, for some reason, the parasaurs in the mainland in California now are wildly different designs. So maybe
Who
Owen is
made them?
capturing them because he's like, well, these aren't the ones from the island. What's going on here? Maybe
Who's
that could
made
be part
these?
of the
Yeah,
plot.
yeah.
Maybe that could have been part of the plot. And then going,
It's a video game. It's a video game coming up.
we got dinosaurs showing up that weren't from Jurassic World now. So not only are we dealing with the invasive species aspect of the dinosaurs that got free and whatnot from the islands, I'm afraid people might be making their own and things. We better get to the bottom of this. That could have led to the locust plot, and there's so many.
That could be a show. That could be a storyline for something. They can use that. That's a
But
good thing.
the thing is what he said he wouldn't do a few years ago, then they just go and do anyways for some reason. And it's just, I don't know, it's a little frustrating. Then it just like the prologue sequence for then the dinosaurs just end up looking the same as the modern ones for some reason. You had a lot of this movie is squandered opportunities left and right, and it's hard not to be frustrated by it. And if it worked better structurally, these things would be more superficial, but because it doesn't work structurally and it doesn't really have any nuance and complexity to its plot, it's hard not just to find everything frustrating. And it's hard not to get caught up by the superficial because the movie largely is superficial. That's why I'm caught up on the superficial elements on Jurassic World Dominion, because it is a very superficial movie.
Yeah, and I do feel like coming away, the longer it's been, I haven't watched it since, and I like whatever, man. But I just have zero urge, zero desire. I feel very let down over
Me
the
too.
last few movies. Like again, I preface it because you have to now. I love that people do love these movies and have enjoyment from them. That doesn't take away
You almost
from
have to preface it
my
now.
lack of enjoyment. I'm glad you enjoy them. That's great. Movies are subjective, but Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, and Dominion, all three of them have let me down. And I'm a big fan of the originals. And you could call it rose tinted glasses. You could call it whatever you want. Oh, I had so much anticipation. But there's a lot of franchises similar to Jurassic that I grew up with that have had sequels that I've really enjoyed. And there's a lot of movies that, in general, are able to handle 30 years on making a sequel. Just seems like a lot of boxes weren't being ticked on these three movies. And especially Dominion, I think, is the great summary of what happened to this trilogy. If you watch that movie, I mean, it just seems like the conversation has ended. And it seems a bit soon for that to have happened. And it's all very quiet, not just the studio, but even I don't see many topics about Dominion or diving deep into Dominion and people discovering stuff about Dominion. It seems like,
Well, Jack, look at even us, man. It's even hard for us to like aside from chatting with us, we chat all the time, but we don't like sit down and like record a podcast like we used to, you know? Like that magic is the fire is gone. Like we talk all the time, but we don't record all the time like we used to. I don't know why.
it's a really interesting point. It is we were younger, obviously, back in 2015.
We
were
had
really
more time for
excited,
sure.
but it's hard to talk about something when you're coming away from it thinking, oh, I just personally didn't enjoy it so much, so it's hard to record and want to do it. But yeah, I don't know. These studio notes really are interesting, and it's, I guess, more of the question is why weren't they followed more?
I'm sure we can find out. This will be something fun to follow over the next couple of years, honestly. What happened behind the scenes?
Deadlines, and it's saying things that
COVID maybe too. COVID, guys. I think COVID must have, or the pandemic must have played some sort of a role in this. They must have been like at some point, so we can't. There's only so much they can honestly do with the time that they had. There must have been some other like behind the scenes stuff that I'm sure will come out.
This movie has largely followed a lot of the same plot elements for years. It's a lot of time to figure this out. I don't know
but maybe they were locked in. Like we don't know. We won't know for a while. Maybe I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt for now.
This movie could have benefited so much by streamlining its own complexity of its plot, and then just focusing more on the elements that they choose to keep and really diving into them rather than sprinkling elements and trying to interweave them, but you don't really spend too much time with any of them.
You know, while we're ending this pod, like I'm thinking about it's weird how Jurassic and Star Wars, the episode 7, 8, 9, felt like followed such a similar trajectory, like decent openers, and they just went downhill, and everyone just stopped talking about them. Very similar, like same with the box office. Similar trajectory, just went downhill and just.
That's why I think the
That's it.
conversation about studios and notes and feedback loops is very relevant. That's why I felt like talking about
Exactly.
notes is very relevant.
You're
Because
minimizing your returns. Like the returns are dropping. You got to start eventually you got to start putting some more effort into your product that you put out.
all I can say is I hope Jurassic can get its Andor moment.
I hope so too. We can only hope, my friend.
What's left in the franchise? Camp Cretaceous is finished currently. We know there's going to be another animated show
I gotta
like
finish
in
that
the
still.
future.
Yeah.
But currently, Camp Cretaceous is over. There's no game coming out that we're aware of. And the only thing, correct me if I'm wrong, but is the live tour, which is now actively touring again.
Back
And
up
it's
again.
actually coming
And
to Vancouver.
JP30.
Coming up
Hey,
to
Vancouver.
Canada, which I didn't know about. So
Yo, Jack, let's go hit that up, bro.
Yeah,
I'm your neighbor now. Let's hit it up.
What's going on?
Me and Jack are heading
the
up to
live
Vancouver.
tour's coming to Canada. But I
Oh,
didn't, not yet, but I didn't realize it was.
Yeah, we'll
But I
go.
was going to say that seems to be the only thing Jurassic that's still going is the live
Well,
tour.
we should talk
And
about
that's
JP30, right? We
tied
should touch
in.
on that if we know
Tied
anything.
in. Yeah,
next
so
year.
JP 30th next year, and it's going to be
That's
a great
about
year.
that.
It's going to be exciting because the original classic best movie is going to be everywhere again. It's going to be on screens. People are going to be showing scenes
Will
from
it?
that original movie. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed, right?
I mean, like,
Make sure you get ready to buy your tickets to the
No,
event last minute.
I would love for a re-release in theaters. I know they just did it recently, but do it again. I'd also honestly love for them to do a new remastering because I felt like the 4K,
Yeah.
the Blu-ray, all of those have some really bad color grade choices. None of them are true to the original. So
if you've seen the incredible work that the team behind the open matte versions are doing, then you know that the studio need to pump some more money and remaster this movie properly.
yeah, just try to get the color grade in there, and the Blu-ray, you've either got the ultra cold version, which is really weird for the original Blu-ray. Then you've got the ultra warm version for the 3D,
which is also cropped and has additional weird cropping on it.
Yeah.
And the blue one I think has hair smoothing and weird.
Yeah,
I hate I have the blue one. I hate it.
They just need to spend some money, do a proper port and remaster of Jurassic Park.
Well, let me ask you guys this though. Aside from the port, which we know they probably won't do because it's Universal.
I don't think they will. Yeah.
And what do you guys think about the chances of an event?
I honestly don't know.
I think there will probably be an event in June. I think it's hard to
You have to
imagine there
think.
wouldn't be.
Beyond the Gates got one.
Yeah,
Beyond
probably
the
on the
Gates.
Gates.
That showed that people want it. That showed. Well, no,
Yeah,
that showed that people want it. That shows that people want more
I agree,
events.
but there was a movie coming out that year, so it was very
JP30, everyone loved JP. Remember JP25? That was in the in the wake of a new one.
Was proof
that was
I
a
think
hype
it can
event, guys.
Remember, there was also
But
a movie coming out that year.
As Chris
But
said,
JP, I don't know. I think if you set a JP event in LA or Florida, I think guaranteed just by the fact that it's a JP in those parks, you're gonna get a lot of people just by the fact alone.
Yeah, but I think Chris makes a good point though because JP25, it really was like it was about Colin. It was about what's
and
coming
Fallen
and
Kingdom,
Laura Dern on stage, and it was incredible. But they talked, yeah. So
just to
I
cap
feel
off
like
the trilogy
it would be
too, bro.
silly for there not to be events. Maybe it's not going to be like a big event like that, but maybe it'll be smaller events that take place at both the parks, like over a period of a week, maybe the whole month. There's like an extra bunch of stuff that's going on. Maybe there's, the shop they set up at the Hollywood Park, which was like a prop, like an old. They got all the old props out. Maybe they'll do stuff like that, but I think there'll be an event. I think it'd be weird if there wasn't.
I hope so, man. I'm itching
30th
for one.
anniversary.
I want to go.
Maybe, just maybe they'll announce something, but I don't feel like that will happen.
What, like a week before the event?
Yeah, one day before.
No, I mean they'll announce like a new movie.
They won't do that. They don't like us that much.
The future of the franchise, I think, is something we should save for another podcast.
Yeah,
I think, that's a great conversation to have. Happy New Year to all of our listeners out there. We hope you had a great festive holiday season, however you spent it, and Happy New Year. This is 2023, 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park. It's our year.
We're getting old.
Crazy. Leave your comments down below if you enjoyed this podcast. Let us know what you want in the next installment, whatever it might be, of Jurassic Park, the Jurassic World era. What do you want to see? Let us know in the comments, and we will go through the best of those comments and talk about them on the podcast, and we'll delete the others. But thank you so much for listening, guys. Any final thoughts?
I mean,
thank you for bearing with us. That's what I gotta say.
Yeah, and I mean, largely, I know this episode been a little more cynical. And it's because a lot of that's pent up and we haven't had the opportunity to really properly talk about it. But I still think that there's so many stories to explore with Jurassic. I'm not like at a point where it's like, oh, I'm done with it. No, actually, quite the opposite. I just hope that the right lessons can be taken and we can get back to basics and really just explore a movie that's got a little bit of magic in it and some complexity and
And
whatnot.
we'll
So,
discuss it on the next podcast. But I
yes.
watched A Quiet Place 2 again. Well, actually, I watched it recently. I thought I hadn't seen it, and then I got halfway through, and I was like, I've seen this movie. I was like, man, the first Quiet Place and the second Quiet Place, they're just vibes.
Different movies.
They're very good movies. Very.
Yeah, they're different, man. They don't make them like
Yeah,
that.
I think we all came away from the first one saying we replace those monsters with raptors, and
And we're happy.
you have a brilliant Jurassic movie. And yeah, I mean, I really hope there's something there. I hope John Krasinski gets involved somehow. I think it's just a very logical choice coming away from those two.
It's a matter of time, I think, boys. I think it's a matter of time.
Hopefully. I mean,
Yep.
there's a lot of really talented writers and filmmakers out there. And I just hope that maybe they allow Jurassic the breathing room to explore some smaller stories and just get back to, put us in the shoes of a world where there's dinosaurs. And maybe I want the movie to have something to say, but I don't necessarily need it to be too complex. Make the themes complex, maybe not the plot. You know what I mean? And I think but anyways, that's neither here nor there. But I just want to say that despite all this, there is a lot that I still love about Jurassic. I'm really excited about a lot about it. And I'm hopeful, hopelessly optimistic, despite constantly being let down.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for listening to the InGeneral podcast. Everybody leave a comment down below. Like this video. You can dislike it if you want. Doesn't really matter anymore since YouTube censored the dislike option.
It'll hurt my feelings, though. Please don't.
Well, you won't even know. No one will know.
That's a good point.
It's so dumb. No, actually, it's true. You can download the YouTube revamped app if you have Android, and it brings back all those features. Gives you YouTube Premium. It's brilliant.
You're going out of your way to get hurt. Why would you do that?
No, I think it's important to see the dislikes. But hey,
That's
enjoy.
true,
Thank you for listening to the podcast. Leave your comments down below on what you want to see in the next, whatever it might be of Jurassic, whether it's a film, TV show. Leave your comments down below. Thank you so much for listening. Farewell.
Goodbye.